Peter Pan, read by Orazsoltan Batyrova. Chapter 1. At Home. All children grow up, except for one. They learn that fact after they are 2, as Wendy Darling did. One day she played in the garden very joyfully. She plucked a flower and ran with it to her mother. Mrs. Darling looked at her daughter and said, "Oh, why can't you be like this forever?" Later on, Wendy knew that she must grow up. The Darlings lived in London at number 14. Mrs. Darling was a lovely lady with a romantic mind, and Mr. Darling was an honorable man with a kind heart. They had 3 children. Wendy was the oldest. Then came John and little Michael. The Darlings loved to have everything just right. That is why the children had a nurse. Their nurse was a big Newfoundland dog named Nana. Nurse Nana bathed the children, gave them their supper, and watched over them in every way. She always accompanied the children to school and back home again carefully. Her doghouse was in the yard. When the children cried, she would always wake up. She kept an eye on the children day and night. Nana always did her job very well. Mrs. Darling didn't know what she would do without her. Nana was the best nurse and helper. The Darlings were a happy family. That was until Peter Pan arrived. One night, on Nana's night off, Mrs. Darling tucked the children into bed. That night, she heard of Peter Pan and Neverland for the first time. The children told her many stories about Peter Pan. She was quite surprised. Mrs. Darling doubted whether there was really such a person or not. Then she kissed her children and went downstairs. She sat by the fire and started to sew. The fire was very warm. Everything was safe and cozy. Soon she fell asleep. She had very strange dreams. She dreamed about Neverland and a strange boy. The boy's face was quite familiar. She saw him before, but she could not remember when and where. She was awakened by a slight draught from the window. She looked around and saw a boy dressed in a suit of leaves. It was the boy from her dreams. It was Peter Pan. He looked very lovely and kind. He dropped to the floor like a cat. Mrs. Darling was surprised to see all his first teeth. A strange, small light flew beside him. It ran about the room like a living thing. She screamed, and down the hall, Nana, who had returned home, heard the scream. She ran into the room and jumped on Peter. But Peter was very quick. The dog was only able to catch his shadow. Nana held Peter's shadow in her mouth, but Peter got away. He jumped out of the window. The ball of light followed Peter. It escaped too. Mrs. Darling screamed again. She thought the boy had fallen out of the window. She thought he was killed. She ran down to the street. Nana followed her. She looked for the boy, but he wasn't there. She looked up into the sky. He wasn't there either. She only saw a flash of light. It looked like a shooting star. Mrs. Darling and Nana walked back into the house. Mrs. Darling looked carefully at Nana's mouth. She saw the boy's shadow in her mouth. It was quite a strange thing. Mrs. Darling examined it carefully. She knew what the best thing to do with this shadow was. She rolled up the boy's shadow and put it in a drawer. Well, he will need his shadow. He will come back for his shadow. Let's put it somewhere he can find it easily, Mrs. Darling told herself. Then she went to sleep. She slept soundly that night, as she knew that her children were safe and sound. One day, Mrs. Darling told her husband about the incident. Mr. Darling considered it a little silly. He decided to find a different nurse for their children. "This dog has too much authority in this house," said Mr. Darling. At that moment, Mr. Darling was very angry with Nana. She dragged her out of the house and locked her up in the doghouse. A few nights later, Mr. and Mrs. Darling were getting ready for a party. They dressed up in their best clothes. They were in a hurry to get to the party in time. And, unluckily, Mr. Darling collided with Nana and covered his new trousers with her hair. "It is a mistake to have a dog for a nurse," said Mr. Darling. "No, Nana is such a treasure," said Mrs. Darling. As she said this, Mr. Darling seized Nana tightly and locked her in the doghouse again. He felt that he had to have a strong authority in the house. He showed who was the master in the house, so to say. He was ashamed of himself, and yet he did it. Later on, Mr. and Mrs. Darling went to the party. Nana was in the doghouse and the children were asleep. There was only a maid to look after them. Nana was barking unhappily. After the lights were out, the smallest star in the sky yelled, "Now, go, Peter!" Chapter 2. Come away, come away. A twinkling light flew into the children's room through a small opening. It was 1,000 times brighter than the night lights. It was a tiny fairy called Tinker Bell. She was looking for Peter's shadow. She turned everything in the room inside out. Then she opened the window. Peter Pan dropped to the floor. His hands were covered with fairy dust. "Think," he whispered. "Do you know where they put my shadow?" "Yes, Mrs. Darling put it in a drawer." Peter Pan searched all of the drawers in the nursery. After a moment, he found his shadow. In his excitement, he shot Tinker Bell in one of the drawers. "Here it is." Peter was annoyed with his shadow. He tried to stick it on with a bar of soap, but that didn't work. He sat on the floor and started to cry. The sound of his crying woke Wendy up. She sat up in a bed and looked at the stranger on the floor. She was pleasantly surprised. "Who's that?" "It's me." "Boy, what are you doing in my room? Why are you crying? And who are you? And, oh, I'm Peter Pan. Please, don't be afraid of me. I'm crying because my shadow won't stick." "Your shadow?" "Yes." "Oh, you must be that boy, the boy who dropped his shadow while trying to escape." "Yes." "Where do you live?" "Second to the right, and then straight till morning." "What a funny address." "No, it is not funny. What were you doing in our room?" "I often came to listen to your mother tell you stories. She is a very good storyteller." "You came here many times to hear my mother's stories?" "Yes." "Okay then, I'll help you." Wendy knew at once what to do. She took out her needle and thread. She began to sew his shadow back on. "Does it hurt?" "Not at all." Soon Peter had his shadow again. Peter was jumping about the room with the joy. He felt as if he had sewn his shadow on himself. For a moment, Wendy was shocked. Then she was very angry with Peter. She jumped into her bed and covered her face with the blanket. Peter sat on the end of the bed and tried to calm her. "You are so wonderful. You sewed my shadow so skillfully. One girl is better than 20 boys," said Peter Pan. "Thank you, Peter. Do you really think so?" "Yes, I do." "Oh, that's so kind of you. I'd like to give you a kiss," said Wendy. "So give it to me." Peter opened up his hand. Wendy saw that Peter didn't know what a kiss was. She didn't want to hurt Peter Pan's feelings, so she gave him a thimble instead. "I'd like to give you a kiss too," said Peter, and gave her an acorn. "Thank you, Peter." She put the acorn on a chain and wore it around her neck. "I'll keep your kiss on my neck forever, Peter. And I'll keep your kiss forever too." Wendy looked at him carefully. He seemed to be around her age. "How old are you, Peter?" I don't know, but I'm quite young. I ran away from home on the day I was born. Really? The day you were born? Yes. Why did you do that? I heard my father and mother talking. They were talking about what I would be when I grow up. When I heard their plans about my future, I didn't want to grow up. That is why I ran away to live with the fairies. Where do you live now, Peter? Asked Wendy. I live with the lost boys in Neverland. The lost boys who fell out of their carriages. Their mothers or fathers forgot about them. I'm their leader. How wonderful, said Wendy. You must have a lot of fun with them. Yes, we have a lot of fun, but we are very lonely. We don't have a mother after all. I wish I had a mother. She could tell us bedtime stories like your mother. I know lots of stories, said Wendy. Peter was so glad that he rose from the floor. He went to the window and sat on the windowsill. There was a mischievous look in his eyes, but that look did not alarm Wendy at all. Why don't you come with me then? You can tell me all of your stories. Come and fly with me, said Peter. He took Wendy by the hand. Peter, I can't fly. I'll teach you to fly, and then you will see many mermaids in Neverland. All the boys will respect you very much. You can tell us all your stories, said Peter. That sounds so good, but I can't leave my brothers. Will you teach John and Michael to fly too? They can come with us. I'll teach you and your brothers to fly. It is very easy. Tinker Bell's fairy dust will help you fly. The idea was too good for Wendy to resist. The next moment, Wendy woke up her brothers. What is it, really? It is Peter Pan. He will teach us to fly, and then we will fly away to Neverland, answered Wendy. The brothers were happy to hear that. They were ready to fly away with Peter Pan. Okay then, we need Tinker Bell now. Who is Tinker Bell? She's a fairy. We must find her. I think I shut her in a drawer. They looked for Tinker Bell. They started to open the drawers and found her in one of them. Tinker Bell, Wendy and her brothers want to come with us. We must teach them how to fly, said Peter. Tinker Bell didn't like Wendy. She looked at Wendy angrily, but Peter did not notice her angry look. A minute later, he threw some fairy dust onto the children. You have to think of wonderful things now and fly up in the air, said Peter. Peter showed them how to fly. After some practice, they were all flying. They enjoyed it very much. I'm flying, look at me, wee, said Michael. So wonderful, said Wendy. It was just at that moment Mr. and Mrs. Darling left the party. Nana felt the danger. She broke her chain to go warn Mr. and Mrs. Darling of the danger to their children. The Darlings heard her barking. They all ran quickly to the nursery. But it was too late. The children were gone. Wendy and her brothers flew away with Peter and the fairy Tinker Bell to Neverland. The children were flying in the sky. They saw many houses and streets down below. Look, the village looks like a toy from up here. Take the second to the left and fly straight till morning. That's the way to Neverland, said Peter. Peter just said whatever came into his head. Wendy, Michael and John were flying in their pajamas. They followed Peter with joy. They enjoyed being part of such a big adventure. They were flying over the sea, but for how long? John thought it was their second sea and their third night, but he was not sure about that. Sometimes it was dark and sometimes it was light. Peter was taking the food from birds' mouths to feed his friends. And so they continued to fly day and night. Finally, Peter stopped. We have arrived. We are in Neverland, said Peter. The children stood on their tiptoes to see Neverland. Down below them was a beautiful green island. It seemed very familiar to them. They had seen it in their dreams. They all recognized it at once. They saw a beautiful lagoon with many mermaids, a flamingo with a broken leg, a turtle with her eggs in the sand, and an Indian camp in the forest. The children were flying close to Peter. Suddenly, Peter stopped. and looked down with his bright green eyes. "Look out, there are many pirates down below," cried Peter. The pirates saw them flying. "It is Captain Hook and his pirates. They don't want us to land here," said Peter. "Who is Captain Hook?" "You'll come to know him. He is our biggest enemy. He's very dangerous. I cut off his right hand, and now he has an iron hook instead of a right hand," said Peter. The children were surprised to hear that. They were afraid of Captain Hook and his band. What's more, the island seemed to grow darker and more unfriendly. "The pirates have spotted us. Let's fly higher," said Peter. At that moment, the pirates fired their canoe into the sky. The children all flew in different directions. Wendy found herself alone with Tinker Bell. Tinker Bell looked at Wendy with an angry look. She was jealous of Wendy. She had an evil plan in her mind. On the island, the lost boys were looking for Peter Pan. Tinker Bell asked Wendy to follow her, and all would be all right. What else could Wendy do? She did not know that Tinker Bell hated her so much. She followed Tinker Bell to her doom. Chapter 3. The island comes to life. That evening there was a lot of movement on the island. Neverland was full of life. The lost boys were looking for Peter, and the pirates were looking for the lost boys. They were singing a dreadful song to frighten their enemies on the island. They wanted to catch the lost boys and use them as their slaves. Captain Hook walked in the middle of his band. He looked very angry. The Indians did not like the pirates. They were looking for them. They carried their knives and tomahawks. They were absolutely ready for the coming fight. They were moving together at the same speed and in the same direction, and so they just kept walking on the island. The boys were dressed in an animal's skins. There were Tootles, Nips, Slightly, Curly, and the twins. They lived in a home under the ground. Each boy had his very own hollow tree with a secret entrance. The boys were talking quietly. Suddenly they heard a sound far off. It was the pirates' dreadful song. They crept through the dark forest. The boys ran into their home underground at once. This was how they hid from the pirates. Captain James Hook, their leader, was the worst of all the pirates. He was dressed in a velvet and lace. He wore his hair in big black curls. He seemed like a real gentleman. He hated Peter Pan. He was leaving to get his revenge on Peter Pan because he had lost his right hand in a fight with him. Now he had a metal hook instead. It was the hook that made him hate Peter. That is why he was called Captain Hook or simply Hook. Soon the boys heard the voice of Hook. It was a deep voice. The boys waited silently in their home. They stood still with the fear. The captain was talking to his man, Smee. "Peter Pan cut off my arm, and he fed the crocodile with it. I think that the crocodile found it so delicious that it has followed me ever since," said Hook. "In a way, it is kind of compliment. You are a tasty person," said Smee. "Compliment? What compliment? I'll kill Peter Pan. He is the reason why that crocodile follows me around. It is always behind us. Yes, it would have eaten me by now, but it swallowed my clock away with my arm. Now it ticks. So when I hear the ticking crocodile, I run away. That clock will stop ticking someday. I know. That is why I am afraid." Captain Hook sliced the air with his deadly hook. "And it's all Peter's fault. I have waited so long. I'll get my revenge. I'll shake his hand with his." And he waved his hook in the air. At that moment, Captain Hook saw some big mushrooms in the moonlight. They were absolutely unheard of on the island. He bent down to pick one, but the mushroom had no roots. Hook jumped up with surprise. The pirates looked at each other. "This mushroom is hot." The captain and his man looked carefully at the mushrooms. They noticed smoke rising from them. The two men pulled the mushroom from the ground. The mushroom was the chimney of a home under the ground. Then they heard the sound of boys talking. The pirates had found the entrance into the boys' underground home. They stood silently for a moment. The captain smiled grimly. "We found them, and they don't even know it. I have a plan." "What is your plan, Captain?" asked Smee. "We'll bake a big cake with thick green sugar on it. When they're out, we will leave the poisoned cake there, and Peter and the boys will find it. They will think Wendy has made it." He giggled. "When they eat, they will have no mother to warn them. They won't know how dangerous that rich cake is when they eat it up. Then they will die." "What a clever plan," said Smee. At that moment the pirates heard of a far sound. Tick, 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 tick. It was the crocodile which had eaten Hook's right hand. The captain shook with fear. "The crocodile!" screamed Captain Hook. Then he ran away as fast as he could. The other pirates disappeared among the trees too. The forest was silent again. Later on, the boys came out of their home, but the danger of the night was not yet over. Nips saw Tinker Bell flying in the sky. "Look, there is Tinker Bell," cried Nips. The boys looked into the sky. They could see Tinker Bell and Wendy flying towards them. Wendy looked like a big white bird in her nightgown. Tinker Bell was still jealous of Wendy. "Hurry, Peter wants you to shoot his witch," shouted Tinker Bell. Tootles had a bow and an arrow with him. He fitted the arrow to his bow and shot at Wendy. It struck her in the chest. She fell to the ground. The boys gathered around Wendy. It was very silent around. They were looking at Wendy with amazement. "This is not a bird," said Slightly. "And it's not a witch, she's Lady," said Nibs. Tootles stood silently. His face was white. He was afraid of Peter's anger. Suddenly the boys saw Peter Pan flying towards them. Peter Pan did not know what had happened to Wendy. Soon he dropped to the ground. "Great news, boys! I've brought you a mother." The lost boys understood that they had made a big mistake by shooting the girl. They began to shake. They were very afraid. Then Tootles stepped forward. "I killed her," said Tootles. "I shot her with an arrow." "But why? Why did you shoot her?" "We thought she was a witch," said one boy. John, Michael, and the fairy were crying. "That's what Tinker Bell told us," said another boy. "Tinker Bell, how could you? Why did you lie like that?" said Peter Pan to Tinker Bell. "Because I hate you, Peter. You like her more than me," she said, and started to cry. Peter Pan was furious when he realized that Tinker Bell's actions were because of jealousy. He was beside himself with anger. "You wicked evil fairy, I never want to lay eyes on you again," said Peter Pan. "Well, I never want to see you again either," said Tinker Bell. She flew away. At that moment, Wendy raised her hand. Peter knelt beside Wendy. "Look, she's breathing. She's not dead." The arrow struck her acorn. "My kiss saved her life," said Peter. "What are we going to do about this girl?" asked Slightly. "I don't want to move her. We may hurt her," said Peter. "I know what to do. Why don't we build a house around her?" said Nibs. "That's a great idea," said Peter. And so the lost boys began to build a house. They were very busy with their task. Peter measured Wendy to see how big a house she would need. Then Slightly examined Wendy carefully. She wasn't hurt. She was only unconscious for a short time. Suddenly she began to sing. "I wish I had a pretty house the little's ever seen, with funny little red walls and a roof made of mossy green." The lost boys were delighted. They cried loudly with joy. They happily built their house to the rhythm of the song. It really seemed like they had a mother at last. They followed all of Wendy's wishes for the house. The house was quite beautiful and cozy. Later on, the boys knocked on the door. The door opened and Wendy came out. She looked very surprised to see such a beautiful house. "We are your children. Please be our mother," said the boys. "I will be your mother. I'll do my best." "Come inside at once. It is late now. I'll tell you the story of Cinderella," said Wendy. And all the boys went inside quickly. They listened to the Wendy story very attentively, but Peter Pan was not with them. He kept watch outside with his sword. Wendy told her story and put the boys to bed. The boys were too excited to sleep. They were talking about what had happened that day. Finally, they fell asleep in their home under the ground. Their home had a large room with a cozy floor. Mushrooms grew out of the floor. Wendy and the boys used those mushrooms as tools. There was also a big fireplace. The bed stood against the wall where all the boys slept. There was a big hole in the wall which was the private room of Tinker Bell. There Tinker Bell had a bed, a mirror, a washstand, and a carpet. It was quite a beautiful room for a fairy. The children's home under the ground was the best home in the whole world. Wendy was very busy looking after boys. She cooked and cleaned all day long. She also liked sewing and darning very much. She always had something to do, but she was very happy with the boys. But did the children think about their parents? That is a difficult question, because it is hard to say how time flies in Neverland. The children did not worry about their mother and father. They were absolutely sure their parents would keep the window open the whole time for them to fly back. And so weeks went by. Sometimes Wendy thought of her home and her parents, but John and Michael could not remember their parents because they were little boys. Chapter 4. The Mermaid's Lagoon. There was a lagoon next to the underground home. It sparkled with all the colors of the rainbow on sunny days. The singing of mermaids filled the air. It was like a piece of the heaven. It was the lagoon of Neverland. It was the children's favorite place to spend time. They liked to swim and play mermaid games in the water. But mermaids did not like the children very much. They always splashed them with their long tails on purpose. Only Peter could talk to the mermaids for hours or sit on their tails when they felt cheerful. There was a big rock in the middle of the lagoon. It was called Marooner's Rock. The children liked to rest on the rock after their lunch. One day, the children had a picnic on Marooner's Rock. After lunch, the boys lay there in the sun as usual. Then they fell asleep for some time. Wendy sat beside them and watched over them. She was teaching silently. Slowly, a change came over the lagoon. The sun slipped away. The mermaids stopped singing. It became very dark. Wendy could not see her needle anymore. She looked up very carefully. The lagoon seemed quiet and friendly and dangerous. Then Wendy heard the sound of oars, but she did not wake the boys. However, there was one among them who could smell danger even in his sleep. It was Peter. He jumped up. He did not move for some time. He listened attentively. "Pirates!" he cried. He quickly woke up the boys. There was a strange smile on his face. Wendy saw it and shuddered. The boys were waiting for Peter's orders. "Jump in the water," Peter told them. They jumped in the water. Suddenly the lagoon became empty again. In the dark, the children heard the splash sound of the oars. Wendy, Peter, and the boys watched the rowboat approach. Peter was right. There were the pirates. The pirates, Starkey and Smee, had a prisoner. It was Tiger Lily, the Indian princess. She was the daughter of the Indian chief. Her hands and legs were tied. The pirates wanted to leave her on the rock to die. She would drown when the tide rose. But the Tiger Lily was not afraid. She looked quite brave at that moment. Soon the pirates threw the girl onto the rock. Wendy and Peter stood near the rock. Wendy was crying because she was very sorry for Tiger Lily. Just then Peter had a good idea. He decided to imitate the voice of Hook. "Ahoy there! Set her free or you'll feel my hook!" cried Peter. The pirates thought it was Captain Hook, and they obeyed his order at once. They untied Tiger Lily. Tiger Lily jumped into the water and quickly swam away. "Ahoy there!" The pirates heard Captain Hook's voice again. It was not Peter this time, it was the real Captain Hook. He was swimming to the boat, and soon he reached his pirates. "Help me onto the boat." They helped Captain Hook climb onto the boat. "Captain," said Smee, "are you all right?" "Yes, I'm okay, but my plan is ruined. The Lost Boys have found the mother." "Oh, what a bad day," said Starkey. "Captain," said Smee, "why don't we kidnap the boy's mother then? We could make her be our mother instead." Hook's eyes lit up. "What a great idea!" Wendy was shocked to hear that. She screamed loudly. The pirates looked around with surprise. "What was that?" asked Hook. "I didn't hear anything," said Starkey. Captain Hook did not take Wendy's screams seriously. Suddenly he remembered Tiger Lily. He looked around, he could not see her. "Where's the princess?" he shouted. "We let her go," said Starkey. "Just like you ordered," said Smee. "What? You let her go? I never told you to do that." "But Captain, you said set her free or you'll feel my hook." "No, it wasn't me." Captain Hook could see the truth in the pirate's eyes, but his face was black with anger. "If it wasn't you, who was it then? Was it a ghost?" asked Smee. "Spirit that haunts this dark lagoon. Can you hear me?" cried Hook. Of course, Peter could not keep quiet. He answered at once. "I hear you." His voice sounded just like Captain Hook's. The pirates were very afraid. "Who are you? Speak!" "I'm your spirit, Captain. You'll die in this lagoon." Captain Hook nearly choked because he was so angry. He repeated his question. "Who are you?" "Ha ha ha, your friends seem to be scared, Captain Hook." Hook was absolutely surprised. "Who are you?" "I'm Peter Pan." Captain Hook was furious. In a moment, Hook was himself again. "Smee, Starkey, get in the water. Catch him!" Hook yelled. The pirates jumped into the water. Captain Hook followed them. The next moment, they heard the cheerful voice of Peter. "Are you ready, boys?" "Yes." Then the boys ran up into the pirates. The fight was short and hard. The boys were fighting very bravely. After a while, Captain Hook climbed onto the rock. Peter saw Captain Hook on the rock. He climbed onto the rock too. Captain Hook had his long sword in his hand. Peter had his short sword. The moon moved behind the clouds. It was very dark. Then their hands touched. They looked at each other. They started to fight. Captain Hook tried to slice Peter with his hook, but Peter jumped away every time. He was a good fighter. Suddenly they heard a sound far off. It was the sound that terrified Captain Hook most of all. Tick, 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 tick. "The crocodile!" Captain Hook cried out in the fear. He stopped fighting at once. He jumped into the water and swam like a fish toward his boat. His face was white with fear. The boys saw Captain Hook swimming to his boat wildly, but they could not see Peter and Wendy. Then they found the boat and went home in it. Peter and Wendy lay on Marooner's Rock. The water was rising quickly, but the children were all wet and too tired to fly. Besides, Captain Hook wounded Peter in the fight. The water was getting higher and higher. They could not swim because the water was too dangerous for them. Besides, there were many crocodiles in it. Suddenly, Peter saw a kite in the water. Michael had met that kite a few days before. Peter caught the kite and tied it around Wendy. Then he pushed her from the rock, and in few moments Peter was alone on the lagoon. The rock became very small because of the tide. Peter stood on the rock waiting for his death. Later on, Peter saw something in the water. He thought it was a piece of paper, but he was wrong. It was the Never Bird. The Never Bird was a big creature that lived in the lagoon. Out in the water, the Never Bird saw that Peter was in trouble. She came to save him and take him to the nest. She was trying to reach Peter by working her wings. And after some time, she reached Peter. She gently put him into her nest and floated him over the water. Her nest was big enough for both of them. Anyway, the bird flew up. Peter said his thanks to the bird. Then he rose the staff in the nest and hung his shirt for a sail. Then he reached the shore in a place where the bird could easily find her nest. Later on, Peter reached the home under the ground. Everybody was very happy to see Peter safe and sound. Every boy had many adventures to tell. They were talking for a long time that evening. But the biggest adventure of all was staying up past bedtime. And Wendy, of course, could not stand it. "Go to bed," said Wendy at last. And the boys happily obeyed. Chapter 5. Wendy's Story. The fight on the lagoon soon had a result. The Indians became their friends. Peter had saved Tiger Lily from a dreadful death. Tiger Lily told her father how Peter had saved her, and the Indians were very ready to do anything for Peter. They decided to protect Peter and his friends' underground home. They kept watch day and night as the pirates could attack any time. They called Peter the Swift Green Leaf. One evening the boys were having their supper that Wendy made for them. Peter and Wendy were looking at them happily. The boys were talking very loudly, and Wendy did not like it. "Silence!" cried Wendy. As Wendy said that, the boys stopped talking at once. They cleaned the table and started to play around. After that, they began to dance about the room without stopping. Their dance was so cheerful. Soon it was bedtime. It was time for Wendy's goodnight story. The lost boys got into bed quickly. Peter sat on his stool. His face was thoughtful. A few moments later, Wendy began her story. It was her own real story. "Listen then. There was once a gentleman. His name was Mr. Darling. His wife was Mrs. Darling. They were married. And they had 3 children," began Wendy. John started to remember his family. "I knew them. At least I think I knew them," said John. Wendy went on with her story. They had 3 children and a dog named Nana. One day Mr. Darling was very angry with Nana and put her in her doghouse. Then the children flew to Neverland, said Wendy. "What a good story," said Nibs. "But think of their poor parents. They must have missed their children," said Wendy. "Oh, think of the empty beds. It is so sad," said Tootles. The boys imagined themselves in their warm home. Wendy continued the story. Their mother loved them very much, and she always left the window open. All they had to do was just fly right in. "You are wrong about mothers, Wendy," said Peter. The boys looked around startled. They looked at Peter with fear. "I used to think like you. I thought my mother would keep the window open forever. So I stayed away for many months. Then, one day, I flew back. The window was locked. And another boy was in my bed," said Peter. The story frightened the children. "Are you sure mothers are like that?" asked Nibs. "Yes." "Wendy," cried John, "I don't want another boy to be in my bed. Let's go home." "All right," said Wendy. "Let's go right now. Peter, will you arrange our journey?" Peter could not believe his ears. He thought they were happy in Neverland, but Wendy and her brothers wanted to go back their home. They wanted to go back to their parents. "As you wish." Then Peter went out of the home to give some instructions to the Indians. As he came back, he saw an unexpected scene. The other boys did not want Wendy to leave them. They did not want to lose their mother. "We won't let you go," said one. "Let's throw her in a jail," said another. The boys looked so sad, but Peter did not support them. He said that he would not keep a girl in Neverland against her will. Peter looked at Wendy sadly. "Wendy, I asked the Indians to guide you through the forest, and Tinker Bell will fly with you across the sea," said Peter. "Thank you." Tinker Bell was very glad to hear that Wendy was going. All the boys looked at Wendy sorrowfully. At that moment, Wendy had a good idea. "Why don't you come with us? My mother and father can adopt you," said Wendy to the boys. "Can we go, Peter?" asked the boys. "All right," said Peter. Peter was so sad. Everybody was leaving him. He would be alone in Neverland. Wendy saw the sorrowful look on Peter's face. She knew how bad he felt. "You too, come with us, Peter," she said. "No," said Peter, "I'm not going with you." "But we could find your mother." "No, I don't want to grow up. I just want to be a little boy and have fun forever," said Peter. Peter was not coming. All the boys were shocked to hear that. "If you find your mothers, I hope you will like them. Now, goodbye," said Peter. There was a silence in the room. Suddenly, the ground above them shook. The children listened silently. The pirate attack was a complete surprise. Wendy put her arms around the boys. She was very frightened. The children understood that the pirates wanted to attack them in their underground home, but the Indians were there to protect them. Hook and his pirates had seen the Indians waiting there to protect the boys. They had cheated the Indians. They followed a new method this time. They had suddenly attacked in the dark. That is why the battle above the underground home was over quickly. Many Indians died in the sudden fight. The Indians had lost the battle because they hadn't expected such an attack. The boys wondered who had won, but they could not go out of their underground home. They did not want to know that the pirates had won. But the fight was not over yet. Hook wanted to kill Peter, Wendy, and their band. He hated them with all his heart. After some time, Hook tiptoed to the tree and listened to the sounds from below. He heard Peter talking. "Let's listen. The Indians always beat their tom-toms when they win," said Peter. Captain Hook whispered something to Smee. Smee smiled. Then he picked up a tom-tom and began to drum. Soon he stopped and listened joyfully. "The tom-tom," cried Peter. "The Indians have won! The Indians have won!" cried the boys. The children cheered. They began to dance like the Indians. It was safe for them to go up now. They said their goodbyes to Peter and went off their home. The pirates saw the children at once. They were very surprised. Hook gave his orders. One man to each tree, and others to arrange themselves in a line. Chapter 6. The Pirate Ship. The pirates easily caught the children as they came up. Wendy tried to call Peter, but the pirates covered her mouth with their hands. Then they tied them to prevent their flying away. After they tied their mouths too. Hook was very angry with the boys. He kicked the boys with rage. Then he said to carry Wendy and the boys off to the pirates' ship. Suddenly, Captain Hook found himself absolutely alone in the forest. All was silent around him. Then he went underground to find Peter. Peter was sleeping. He decided to sleep for a while after the children had left him. Peter looked very peaceful as he slept. Hook stood silently in the room. Beside him was a cup of Peter's medicine. Captain Hook always carried a small bottle of dreadful poison. It was a yellow liquid quite unknown to science. Hook put 5 drops into the cup of medicine. His hands shook. Then he climbed back up to the tree. After that, he went to the pirate ship. Luckily for Peter Pan, Tinker Bell saw everything. She waited for Captain Hook to leave the underground house. When Captain Hook left, Tinker Bell flew in. In the meantime, Peter Pan woke up. He seized his knife and looked around fearfully. Where is everybody? Where have they gone? Have they gone out to celebrate the Indians' victory? He thought to himself. He saw the cup of his medicine on the table. He wanted to drink it. He picked up the cup. At that moment, Tinker Bell saw that Peter was about to drink the poison. "Oh, Peter, no!" She flew directly to the cup in Peter's hand. She hit the cup, and the cup dropped in the floor into the pieces. "Hey, Tinker Bell, what have you done? I didn't want you to drink. But why? What is the reason? Can it be your jealousy?" "Oh no, you don't understand. It's poisoned." Peter Pan did not want to believe her. He thought it was her jealousy. "Stop it. I don't want to hear any more of your lies. Why would it be poisoned?" Tinker Bell tried to explain the situation. Captain Hook poisoned it. It was Captain Hook's evil plan. "I heard them. The pirates have captured Wendy and the boys," said Tinker Bell. Peter's heart beat loudly. He could not believe it. Tinker Bell went on. They took the boys and Wendy to their ship. I know where the ship is. Wendy and the boys are in danger. I must save them. Peter left the underground house at once. He flew over the forest to ship. Everything was silent on the island. He could see clearly because the moon was full. Peter saw a crocodile down below. Peter swore this terrible oath. Hook or me this time. He held his knife at the ready. He was anxious but happy. He was off on another adventure. He had to save Wendy and the boys from the pirate. Soon he saw the ship. It lay low in the water. The pirates stood on the deck. Captain Hook was walking along the deck thoughtfully. Wendy was tied to the mast of the pirate's ship. The lost boys were about to be thrown to the crocodile in the sea. They stood close to the plank. Suddenly the feeling of cold death came to Captain Hook. He looked very scared. Nobody really loved him. He was all alone in the world. He did his best not to show his fear. He asked his pirates to prepare the plank at once. The boys went white with fear. Then Captain Hook came up to Wendy and looked at her with her black eyes. "So, my beauty, are you ready to see your boys thrown into the sea? If the crocodile likes their flesh, it might forget the taste of mine," said Captain Hook. Please, please don't do that. They are only little children. Don't send them to their death." "I'll send them to their death, but you can live if you promise to be my mother," said Captain Hook. "Never." All the boys were looking at Wendy. They shook with horror. Captain Hook smiled at them grimly. Suddenly he heard the sound of the clock. They all heard it. Tick, 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 tick. Captain Hook panicked. His face went white with fear at once. The sound came nearer and nearer. "Hide me, the crocodile is about to board the ship," cried Captain Hook. The pirates gathered around their captain. They did not look all the thing that was coming around. They decided not to fight with it. At once the lost boys ran to the ship's side to see the crocodile, but it was not a crocodile, it was Peter Pan. He had brought a clock to frighten Captain Hook. Peter signaled to them to keep quiet. Then he flew into the cabin. Wendy and the boys were very happy to see Peter again. At last the pirates found the courage to look around. They noticed that the terrible sound had passed. Captain Hook became himself again. He looked at his pirates grimly. "Take the lash, it is in the cabin. The children will walk the plank right now," cried Captain Hook. "The cabin!" Peter was in the cabin. The children looked at each other. One of the pirates went into the cabin. The other pirates started to sing their dreadful song joyfully. Suddenly they heard a scream come from the cabin. The pirates stood still. "What was that?" asked Captain Hook. Nobody answered. Then Captain Hook asked another pirate to go into the cabin. There was no singing this time. Soon they heard the same dreadful scream, and thus died many pirates in the cabin. It was Peter who killed them in the cabin. Captain Hook was very angry. "I have a good idea. Open the cabin door and drive the boys in. Let them fight for their lives," said Captain Hook. And so the pirates pushed the boys into the cabin. In the cabin they found many knives. The next moment Peter and the boys ran out of the cabin, and the fight began. The boys were fighting bravely, but Peter jumped down next to the Captain Hook. He stood face to face with the captain. "Aha!" he cried. "It's you." The captain pulled out his sword. "Foolish boy, prepare to die." Peter Pan pulled out his sword as well. His sword was short, but he was a master with a sword. "You will not win this time," said Peter Pan. "We shall see about that," answered Captain Hook. Peter and Captain Hook fought for a long time. Peter turned Hook's thrust again and again. Captain Hook was fighting without hope. Suddenly, Peter pushed him overboard where the crocodile was waiting for him. It was a bad end for Captain Hook, and this is how Captain Hook died. Of course, Wendy did not fight. She watched the fight attentively. Then she saw Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell! Tinkerbell heard her. She flew down onto the board where Wendy was kept captive. She unknotted the knots on her hands and feet. She was very kind to Wendy this time. "Wendy, please forgive me. I was awful to you before. I'm sorry." "It's all right. I understand how you feel," said Wendy. Then all the boys came up to Wendy. Wendy praised them joyfully. Then they flew away from the ship. Chapter 7. Back home again. The next day, Peter decided to take Wendy and her brothers home. At last, Wendy, John, and Michael were going back home. They imagined their parents' joy and Nana's jump through the air. They wanted to take their parents by surprise. Mr. and Mrs. Darling were waiting for their children the whole time. Mrs. Darling aired all the beds and she always left the window open. She was very sad. Mr. Darling felt guilty. He became very kind to Nana and he never put her in the doghouse. That evening, Mrs. Darling was playing the piano. Her melody was very sad. Mr. Darling fell asleep. At that moment, Peter and Tinker Bell flew into the nursery before the others. Peter had been wrong about mothers. At least he was wrong about Wendy's mother, because Mrs. Darling always waited for her children. But Peter had a tricky plan. That is why he did not stay on the island. Instead, he decided to guide Wendy and her brothers back to their home. "Quick, Tinker Bell! Close the window and lock it. When Wendy finds the window locked, she will have to go back with me." "That is not a good plan," said Tinker Bell. At that moment, they heard Wendy's mother playing the piano in the next room. Then she stopped playing the piano. Wendy's mother was singing a sad song for their lost children. "Come back, Wendy, come back. Your mother is waiting for you in pain. Come back, John, come back, Michael, come back. Your mother is waiting for you in pain." Then Mrs. Darling began to cry bitterly. Peter could not stand it. He was unhappy. He stopped to look at her. "Oh, all right, come on, Tinker Bell. We don't want any stupid mothers," he said. He flew back to the children's room and unlocked the window. Then Peter and Tinker Bell flew away. Wendy, John, and Michael found the window open for them. They all dropped on the floor. Michael had almost forgotten everything about their home, but John and Wendy still remembered their room. "I think I've been here before," he said. "It's your home," said John. "So it is. I want to see our mother and father," said Michael. "I have a better plan. Let's all go to our beds as if we had never been away. We will be there when they come in," said Wendy. The children were very tired. That is why they slipped into their beds gladly. Mrs. Darling walked into her children's room as she did every night after her children went missing. She saw her children in their beds. The children waited for her cry of joy. But Mrs. Darling did not believe they were there. They could not understand this. "Mother!" cried Wendy. "We are home!" Mrs. Darling reached her arms out. The children ran to her arms. Suddenly her arms were filled with her 3 children. "George, George, our children are back. Our children have come home," cried Mrs. Darling. Mr. Darling ran into the children's room to share the joy. He hugged his children and cried with happiness. Nana ran into the room too. It was a lovely sight. Nobody saw it except for a little boy at the window. He was looking through the window at the happy family. Chapter 8. When Wendy grew up. The other boys waited below to give Wendy time to talk about them to her parents. After a while, they went upstairs. They looked at Mrs. Darling very kindly. Then the boys asked the Darlings to adopt them, and the Darlings decided to adopt the lost boys. The lost boys danced about the room with joy. Soon Peter flew into the room. The Darlings wanted to adopt him as well. "Will you send me to school and then to an office?" asked Peter. "Yes." "And soon I will be a man?" "Yes." "Then I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be a man and get married. I'll live with Tinker Bell in Neverland," said Peter. He had heard many stories about adult life before. That life was not interesting to him at all. That is why he refused to stay. He decided to go back to Neverland. Mrs. Darling saw that Wendy wanted to go back with Peter. "Mother, Peter will be so lonely in Neverland. He needs a mother so much," said Wendy. Of course, Mrs. Darling did not want to lose Wendy again. A good idea came to her at the time. Wendy may come and visit you once a year, but only for a week. She can't do the spring cleaning, said Mrs. Darling. That offer made Peter happy again. Wendy became very cheerful. You won't forget me, Peter, will you? Asked Wendy. Of course not. Then Peter flew away. Of course, all the lost boys went to the school soon, and after 1 week they understood what fools they had been not to stay in Neverland. But it was too late. What is more, they lost the power to fly. They became as ordinary as other boys at school. Then they stopped believing that they had ever been to Neverland. So, at the end of the first year, Peter came back again. Wendy flew away with him in the flock of leaves and berries. She wanted to talk him about the old times and adventures. But Peter forgot everything. Wendy was very sad. Don't you remember Captain Hook? She asked. I never remember my old adventures, he said. I forget them as soon as I have a new one. Wendy was very sad to hear that. This was very hard for her. Those adventures had meant so much to her, and Peter had forgotten them. For him, they did not matter at all. Anyway, they had a good time in Neverland. After 1 week, Wendy came back home. The next year, Peter did not come for Wendy. Wendy waited for him every day, but he never came. He did not come the year after that either. And so the years came and went. When Wendy grew up, she became very busy at school. She made new friends. Soon her memories of Neverland left her as well. When she was at university, she met a nice man. After university, she got married to that nice man. She wore a wonderful white dress at her wedding. After some time, she had a baby girl. She named her Jane. Jane asked many questions about Peter Pan and Neverland. She loved to hear stories about Peter Pan and his adventures, and Wendy told her all she could remember. One warm spring night, Jane was asleep in her bed. Wendy sat on the floor mending socks. She sat very close to the fire. Suddenly, she heard a noise. The window blew open and Peter Pan flew into the room. He dropped on the floor as usual. He was still a boy. He was exactly the same as ever. But Wendy had grown up. She could not move with surprise. "Hello, Wendy," said Peter. "Have you forgotten? It's spring cleaning time. I can't come. I forgot how to fly. I'm an adult now. I grew up a long time ago." As Wendy said this, she stood up and turned on the light. Peter was shocked. Wendy was not a little girl anymore. She became a grown woman. "I grew up long ago, Peter. I'm a married woman, and the little girl in the bed is my baby. Her name is Jane," said Wendy. "You promised not to grow up," cried Peter. He sat down on the floor and began to cry. His sobs woke Jane. Jane rubbed her eyes. "Hello," she said. "Why are you crying?" "I came for a mother to take her to Neverland." "Yes, I know. I was waiting for you," said Jane. Suddenly, Peter rose in the air and took Jane with him. Wendy rushed to the window at once. "No, it's just for spring cleaning time," said Peter. And so the story began again. Peter taught Jane how to fly. Wendy watched them flying into the sky. Jane flew to Neverland with Peter. Soon Wendy's hair became white, and Jane became a grown-up too. Later on, she had a daughter as well. Her name was Margaret. Peter took her to Neverland every spring. He told her stories about himself. When Margaret grows up, she will have a daughter, and she will be Peter's mother too. And thus it will go on again and again. Peter will always have a mother, as long as there are children who believe in Neverland. The end.